Hi, I'm Rory Greener from XR today, and here we're exploring the role of virtual reality in the industrial sector. And joining me on today's topic is Oliver Wohler, Lenovo's EMEA XR Development Manager, Trond Vandli, the COO of VREX, and Wiebke Uhlenbruch, the team lead of BIM and 3D at Jotun. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Your insight is invaluable. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. Oliver, it'd be great for you to kick off to bring some insight and bring some perspective on VR in the industrial sector before we move on to some more specifics with our other speakers. So, just from Lenovo and the Think Reality side of things, could you give us a little bit of an overview into how virtual reality is shaping the industrial sector through things such as worker collaboration, project evaluation, and even virtual site reviews?
Yeah, thanks, Rory. I think overall it's very important to understand what the Lenovo strategy here is and the idea of how to use virtual reality headsets or mixed reality headsets. Um, and overall, you can't look at this technology as a technology only by itself. So only to look at VR headset is not correct here. VR headsets are only a medium where you can consume, where you can visit content that was created somewhere else, or you can manipulate in VR any objects or possibilities that you have to work in these VR environments. And Lenovo is trying to cover this full production process from the creating of the content to the consuming the content. And this is a very important point because we can cover the full range of possibilities that you have in this environment. And VR, especially VR, has a so big impact because if you create something, if you construct something, you can then visit this in a 3D environment. And Lenovo is really strongly believing in this 3D technology. And we are only one of this. We have also screens where you can look in 3D onto objects and other things. And to have this visibility in 3D will be a huge part in the future of all of us, especially in this construction and design environment.
Fantastic, Trond. It'd be great to get a perspective on VREX's side of things, especially on that point of 3D collaboration and design before. Weep, I know you got some exciting use cases we can follow up on.
Yeah. So what we saw in the industrial sector is that sort of the task of aligning diverse stakeholders from different departments or even different companies on these kind of construction projects, that's very complex. And each of them have varying expertise and objectives, which makes it even worse. And the traditional methods for doing this is to share a screen, either remotely on Teams or you would do it in a big screen meeting room. And it's just generally not a good way of giving anyone a proper understanding for these kind of construction projects. So it often leads to misunderstanding, which causes mistakes, or it just leaves key stakeholders out of the questions totally. So that's where we saw the opportunity to use the VR technology to bridge the gap of understanding, so create an immersive environment where everyone, regardless of their technical knowledge, can explore and discuss these projects together intuitively in the one-to-one scale.
Fantastic. And it'd be great to learn a little bit more about some of the use cases from Juton's perspective.
Yes, I can give a little introduction on what I'm working with. We are a building owner, so we are building for ourselves and working together with consultants and contractors. And what we are using VR for is that we use it for design reviews and collaboration in the design team and with the project team. But we also invite our own people, the future users, to review a facility before it is actually built. So we do user workshops where the future users can investigate the future workplace and give comments and make suggestions for improvement. And that very early in the design phase, so where it's actually easy to change things before one before the building is built, before the decisions are carved in stone or built in stone, we can still move things around, and that makes it very good. And also for communication purposes, that we can communicate the future facility much better with our management team, with the decision takers, if we can provide them an insight to the building. And before, of course, we had 2D drawings. We had a 3D model for the large facilities that we are building. We have been working with BIM in quite a while, but that was all on the flat screen. And now inviting the people into the building, putting on the goggles, that gives even more value for us.
Fantastic. And just to follow up on that real world use case, Trond, it'd be great to get your comments on this. But going from traditional 2D screens to 3D environments, what value does that bring from both sort of a return on investment point of view? I imagine there's some sustainability bits there as well that could be talked about. And Oliver, it'd be great to get your follow up from that equally.
Yeah, so what VREX does is, of course, to provide a better understanding and a better way of discussing these types of projects. So that will, like I mentioned, improve communication early on in the project. So it will lead to getting better feedback to the project. You get better discussions, and you end up taking decisions on more informed basis. And the result for, let's say, the industrial sector would be that they minimize the operational downtime in the facilities and lets them go to full production more swiftly, which is, of course, massive. And they do that by resolving the issues earlier and then don't have to do costly rework and delays later in the construction projects, because that's when it's absolutely time consuming and costly. And even more important is, of course, the end result for an asset owner like Jotun. And they need their factories to be optimized for long-term productivity and efficiency in both in operations and maintenance. So sort of having that end user perspective in the design phases, that's quite, at least it's a better way of getting it now than before. So we see more and more people incorporate that process and that insight more in the design phases than they used to do.
Fantastic. Oliver, any additional thoughts there, especially from Lenovo side in terms of that hardware stack, hardware and software, etc.?
Yeah. So from the Lenovo side, this explains exactly our role. So it's more than simply providing VR headsets. So we are accompanying our clients through the entire content creation process. And this is so important, leveraging our leading Lenovo workstations, for example, which are optimized for handling and rendering complex 3D data. And you need these high-end visualization, high-end rendering more and more in the future. Companies and customers asking for more realistic digital twins, possibilities to consume this rendering, to consume this content that is rendered on a high level. And we see as Lenovo us as one of these partners to enable our customers to do exactly this with us together. And then there's only not the VR headset, it's a full process that you have to support as a supplier, and we are trying to do this with our customers.
Fantastic. And could we get a little bit of a background into the feedback from your customers, both in terms of people, or in terms of companies adopting VR and 3D collaboration technology for the first time in the industrial sector, and what has that adoption looked like, and has it been a positive feedback? And it'd be great to get the VREX point of view as well following.
So from our side, it starts, of course, very often with a project where then, or very often there's already 3D content. Of course, it's there, it's existing because you create it in 3D, and very often it's only press a button to bring this content into a virtual reality headset. But then it starts to become a real game changer when you want to scale this and you want to port this to a wider field of other employees and to discuss with them in your direct environment, or also with customers or clients externally. And then we are supporting these possibilities to that you do not need to travel anymore, that you can make decisions faster and quicker. And very often then the key factor is where is the return of investment, and the investment for VR heads is not really high. It's very often that companies have to change their process and working a little bit to accept that there's a new technology, and we are helping these companies to show where this return of investment is, and then it's very quick, or we see that this decision is then very easy to make to implement this new technology. And then the next step is, of course, to scale this in your company and also to implement this in customer conversations, for example.
Fantastic. Trond, it'd be great to get the VREX perspective of this as well, the feedback you've had from customers. And I like the point as well about a lot of these companies already leveraging 3D assets. And is this perhaps a way for them to leverage those 3D assets better and more efficiently?
Yeah, this is absolutely some of the feedback that we get from our customers that's sort of the same almost across the group is, of course, about the understanding and the way it enables them to involve people who are not necessarily used to construction projects or working in engineering construction software. And it's about how and when you can involve people in the planning phases and in the discussions, and how you can utilize that feedback for making your decisions. And so we have heard many companies say that they shorten their decision-making processes by up to 90%. So just time-wise, it comes shorter because they share the understanding of what they're talking about. And they don't even see that as the main factor. What they see as the main factor is that they actually feel like they're making the informed decisions. So they do understand each other, and they do can base their decisions based on the expertise they, of course, have in the companies. And we see it from sort of the solution designer's point of view as well, that they see it easier to get approval for new and more advanced solutions and designs, just because they're able to communicate that clearer and get the understanding in a better way. So for the facilities in general, it becomes a better, more efficient end result, because you can see it as sort of risk reduction as well, that you actually have the proper insight you need to make a confident decision.
Fantastic. And Wiebke, it'd be great to get your perspective on this, especially, why did you turn to VREX? What are you expecting? And then also, was this the first time you leveraged virtual reality for such a use case or anything similar?
Yes, that is. I can highlight a lot of the things already said before. We had BIM models from before on the flat screen. So in theory, you can also walk through them, but it's on a flat screen. And when we did the first workshop, the first trial, we also asked the user, does it add any value to have the VR goggles? And the answers by all of our users was yes, it is adding value. And the added value is that you have a much broader perspective. So visiting a building, you only see a small part when you're looking on the screen, but when you're wearing the goggles, you can look around and you have much more. You see much more, but you also have much more context. That is important for technical solutions, where you want to see where is this pipe coming from, or how is this connected to each other. So this is added value. And then also we have a project that is a new administration and R&D building with a very nice architectural entrance, and spaces like that you can explore much better when you feel you are inside the room. So we have a high lobby, and this experience of being there, standing there, is very much different than looking at just on the screen, or even worse, looking on drawings where you have a mark saying here's a void. So you can imagine the height. So this was added value for the users, and the users in that workshop, they were engineers working with building projects. So I imagine, and that is also the feedback that we are getting, that people that are not that used in working with building projects, they will even get more benefit out of that, because for them it might be difficult to interpret drawings or even the 3D model correctly. But standing in front of a machine or standing in front of the equipment, then they will feel if they have enough space for doing their maintenance work or for moving raw material between two steps in the production, and that is adding value, and especially having these comments early in the process.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Fantastic. And speaking on that added value, Trond, it'd be great to also get another perspective on why you chose Lenovo here as your hardware manufacturing partner, and then how VREX sees VR as a pathway to improving the industrial sector as a whole.
Yeah. And so, just in general, we do support most VR hardware, but in general, we look to Lenovo because VR is a new technology for most companies, and it requires a reliable framework for hardware maintenance and service. And Lenovo has a global presence and a partner network that offers exactly that. So they have a dependable backbone for VR deployments, even at a global scale. And so that makes, of course, Lenovo a good option for our customers to give them the trust they need in the VR hardware as a reliable part of their workflow, with support available from literally anywhere. So, and I also have a good partner network. For instance, we work with a company called Innoactive that enables VR streaming of VREX, which is beneficial to scale the use of VR even further.
Fantastic. And just before we wrap up here, we've got one more final question for everybody, but we'll start it on Oliver and Trond from your point of view, and then we'll kind of get the end perspective from you, Wiebke. But Oliver, it'd be great to hear your thoughts. We've chatted a lot about VR in industrial usage today, but what does the future hold for VR? From Lenovo's perspective, how does the future look for, as I say, VR in the industrial sector?
So we see, of course, VR as a key technology to drive productivity and innovation in the future. We also see that this rendering of more and more high resolution models is not done in the headset. It has to come from an external source. And there's a need of rendering this content in the environment where you are or from an external source at a cloud system. And as Trond mentioned, Innoactive, for example, is one of these partners that we are working with via cloud and via XR systems, where we think this is one of the key points of the future, that headsets become lighter, smaller, and easier, but the content, the companies asking for, of course, higher rendering models, and you need a more and more realistic environment to create a digital twin environment. And we see there it is super important to build up the full roadmap or the full environment, what Lenovo can do, of course, from the workstation to create this content to the point where you can consume the content via your headset or via your 3D screen. And there we see the future.
Fantastic. And Trond, what about your perspective on the future of VR in industrial?
Yeah, so we have, of course, noticed that both hardware and user friendliness of VR has come a very long way in a short time. And we've noticed that sort of the interest from the market has changed from being interested in the technology to having interest in the actual benefits of VR and what processes they need to get value from it in the projects. And so in that transition, we see that we have gone from maybe a handful of interested users for each project or each company to actually more company-wide or project-wide implementation of our solutions. And we see this just continuing so that it's going to be a natural part of the construction planning toolbox for everyone, just as they use the computer or the mobile phones today.
Fantastic. And Wiebke, just to wrap us up, what about your perspective on the future of VR in industrial from a user, for an end user perspective? I imagine you have high optimism for the technology.
Yes, yes, I do. For this specific use case that we are using it for, that is building projects, I think what will be more important in the future is the integration of existing facilities We have a lot of projects on existing sites, so brownfield projects where it is possible with VREX today already to integrate scanned models and cloud points. This, I think, will be more important, this interaction between new builds and existing sites. And also from the operational part, I think integration of moving equipment, also for example, for material flow. This would give an added value for us in the design phase, where we could test specific situations in a factory, and to also have this not only static view but also have movement in the design and in the models. So that I see could give a benefit for us in planning of new facilities.
Fantastic, brilliant, great. So that's all our questions. That was a really interesting discussion. A lot of value to be taken from that. Thank you all three of you for your time today. That was a really insightful conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I've been Rory Greener of XR Today, and get more news by following our social pages. Thank you very much for watching.